Good. Hello, everybody. It's Craig and Richard here today.
I am
Welcome back,
back.
Richard. You're back.
I had a 2-week staycation. Can't go anywhere, but needed a break. So
Yeah,
back and fresh. Yeah.
a lockdown holiday.
Lockdown holiday indeed. I got the lockdown haircut too. It's great. Hairdressers are closed for context for anyone not stuck in Melbourne.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an interesting and rich time while you've been away, but also some lots of interesting topics to explore this week.
Yep.
One of the first ones relates to choiceless awareness, the open monitoring kind of practice, where we're not focusing on any one particular thing, but just maintaining an open awareness. And it's been interesting because a lot of learners have been finding it's really been helpful, very liberating in a way. And but some finding it actually more difficult because there's so much more opportunity for the mind to wander off here and there, and some interesting stuff. Sorry if we've given people too many metaphors during this course, because description is sitting down there and we're just watching the clouds, just keep watching. Wait, leaves in the stream, and trains.
Puppies, there's all sorts of stuff floating around out there. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And these metaphors aren't meant as a kind of a mental imagery when doing these practices, but more just to give us a kind of an insight of how to work with the things that are happening. And open monitoring, if we're just noticing the mind, just diving down a rabbit hole of something or other, and then we just notice coming out of that again, is we're just observing different states of mind. And we just notice that, and then the next state of mind. So there's really no need for commentary or elaboration on it. We're just sort of observing. And
that's an interesting point. I mean, it's just being with whatever's happening, including the mind wandering all over the place or being completely still. Maybe there's this expansive awareness. Maybe there's a contracted mind. Yeah. And it's just practicing sitting with that, which is really the essence of mindfulness, being with things the way they are without needing to try to change them.
And one of the most subtle and challenging things to sit with is in the back of the mind, a kind of an idea that I'm wanting to have this kind of experience and I'm trying not to have that kind of experience. Yeah. And that constant judging is one of the things that, it really can be quite a preoccupation and a rod for our back when we're practicing mindfulness.
Yeah, definitely. So letting go of all of that and just being with things the way they are. And it's, as you said, when that starts to happen, it's so freeing. It's so nice just to sit and be with no agenda, without needing to bring the mind back, kicking and screaming or control it in any way. It just, whatever's happening is what's happening. And it's a very freeing experience. So it was really nice to read that some of our learners are starting to have that.
Yeah, and some plenty of discussion this week about mindfulness in daily life. And of course, we'll take it forward.
Which is great. I mean, that's the whole point of this course. So I'm glad there's a robust discussion happening around that. And it's interesting because a lot of people sort of are facing the potential or even the reality of a transition back to kind of COVID normal life. People going back to work, back to the workplace after being home for an extended period of time. And, there's even a little bit of anxiety coming up just in general. I think, we get so used to being in one particular place and then suddenly, going back to the office and colleagues are there and, there's commuting and there's a lot of changes happening around the world. So, it was really nice to read some of the descriptions around the way people, Craig, have been practicing mindfulness at home, eating, washing the dishes, cleaning, doing chores. Anything can be a mindfulness practice. And the more we do those sort of everyday activities mindfully, the more we bring mindfulness into our lives. But then the challenge, of course, is when we perhaps get back to work, how do we do that? Because then there's an inbox and the boss and distraction and things happening around us. And there's other drivers perhaps on the road or people on the train. And so it's quite a challenge, isn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It is. And hopefully, if we're just moving in that direction, then we're more mindful, 1% more mindful the next week than we were this week. And it's certainly a process. One of the things that many learners have been relating to lately is all of the stuff that's happening, tragic events, pandemic, what's happening in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And I guess this is, to an extent, the media being what it is, where we tend to get so much of this kind of news because it draws people's attention. And all of the other things that are going on in life, the happier things or the more mundane things, of course, they don't make the news. So we do kind of get a skewed perspective of the world, but at the same time, there is this very natural kind of empathy, and it's very easy to get caught in the vicarious stress. So if we can notice being present to that distress, but being aware in the moment of feeling okay with the presence of that distress. We're not talking about apathy. We're not talking about doing something if we need to do it, but to able to be at peace with the reality, the acceptance that these things are happening. Respond in a way if we can, but to help us not to get caught in the vicarious stress that can really be a very much a cumulative burden.
That's right.
Accumulate that compassion and without the vicarious stress. And being okay with discomfort is not easy.
No. And of course, I love the advice of so many contemplative teachers talk about letting things really touch us deeply. It's not staying arm's length, but it's allowing things to really touch our heart, to really crack us open perhaps, but in a mindful way without getting lost in the stories and the memories and the ideas about it. And it's a real art, isn't it? I mean, watching the news in that way is an art form. That's a black belt mindfulness practice, like sitting in the dentist chair or sitting in traffic, perhaps, to stay really present, aware of what gets touched in us, allowing the suffering of others to really touch our heart, but at the same time to not get lost in that suffering, or at least not lost in reactions to it. Very, very powerful practice, that one.
That's right. Yes. And another topic of discussion this week about living a life more aligned with our core values.
And again, so important, isn't it? I mean, mindfulness gives us the ability to, I guess, start to pay attention to deeper parts of ourselves rather than being caught up in reactivity or even just caught up in the sort of the busyness of the mind. When we start to sort of pay attention and get present, we can start to look really deeply inside and ask questions like, what gives life meaning for us? What are our core values? What's really important? Yes. And it's great to hear some of our learners starting to reflect on that and get in touch with their core values, because of course that is the source of eudaimonic happiness, being in touch with particularly intrinsic values. So it's a very resilient type of happiness that comes from living a life that is aligned with core values, particularly those eudaimonic sort of pro-social values.
Yes, and the planning and the goals tend to be when we lose that sort of larger mindful perspective, all of a sudden we get lost in the details and all of the planning and everything else associated with that, and we lose our kind of bigger picture, the big goals, our sort of vision, as it were. And so it's really quite a challenge not to be lost in amongst the detail, and to remember the perspective and
not to get too attached to the outcome. I think that was the challenge that some of our learners were expressing, that it's one thing to know what your values are, but then it's like, how are we values in action? We want to set goals and make commitments to moving in that direction. And the moment we do that, we get back, I guess, into the world of thoughts and ideas, like you're saying, and then it's very easy to get very attached to a particular outcome, a particular way that things should look. And of course, if we can remember just to hold those things lightly, have goals, have direction, have intentions, but hold that lightly and just keep coming back to the actual values itself, remembering that they are directions that we head in. They're not the waypoints along the way. And if we're too attached to getting from point A to point B, then things can get pretty tight, particularly if we end up somewhere near point C, right? But if we remember that, I'm heading west, or I'm heading in the direction of being more patient, or being kinder, or being of service to others, or learning, or whatever our values tend to be, if we're just always moving in that direction, there's a bit more flow and flexibility that can happen there. And that's a very useful way to be in the world. Yeah,
because in a funny kind of way, I think mindfulness can help us to sort of see life as a bit of a play. That is, things are playing out. It's a drama, it's a comedy next moment, it's a suspense, it's all sorts of things. But we've got a part to play in our day-to-day life.
Yeah,
we can improvise more. We can certainly enjoy it more, both the ups and the downs. And we can kind of watch it unfold. It's almost like the script's being written in the moment. We get to sort of read it, as it were, if we're in the moment. If it's not, we're kind of got so many preconceived ideas about how it should be that we stop playing and moving and improvising with life as it unfolds in the moment. So And there's been a few wise people in the past that have said life's it's like a play.
A bit like a play, a bit like a Netflix series, you know, just to update that a little bit.
That's right. For much of the time, it might be a bit of a sitcom, but so it's been wonderful to be with everybody throughout these last 4 weeks, and so thank you to all the learners around the world, thousands of them. Thank you for creating the supportive environment for other learners and the support that everybody's given each other. So the feedback video, step 4.17, an opportunity to reflect and connect, and we really value everybody's
and give us feedback, which we take into account. We get Sherelle does a great job every year of putting lists together of potential improvements to the course. So please make as many suggestions as you'd like.
And there are other mindful moment videos that could be good resources, and the Monash Mindfulness YouTube channel. Yep. And of course, Sherelle will be continuing to mentor until the end of the course on Sunday night. And just want to thank everybody behind the scenes at Monash as well for making all of this available in FutureLearn. And we really do hope that this course is really enriched people's lives and is something that people can take forward after this 4 weeks. And
beautiful. For the learners that don't know, we have a companion course, Mindfulness for Wellbeing and Peak Performance, which kicks off again on October 4. So you can enroll in that already. If you love this course, please tell your friends. Please rate and review us. There are some links that we've given you for places you can do that, just to spread the word. If this has been a positive experience for you and given you some useful things, obviously tell other people, whether it's online or just sort of your friends and family. Let them know about it, because it's it is such an important time to be doing practices like these. So share the love. And
I just wish everybody that they can maintain a mindful life after this. So thank you to everyone, and bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.